Today on Inspired Money.
I lived in like a little kind of offshoot of a eco-village in Eugene where they made these geodesic domes. And it was kind of like a really nice tent, you know, but you could totally customize it. You could build things in. And so when I moved to Portland, I actually got the folks from Eugene to come up and help me. And we built me a 10-foot dome, and I lived in the backyard of a punk house for quite a long time. But if you only live in 10 feet of space, it really makes you question acquiring possessions. So
This is episode 55 with radio host of Oh My Dollar and author of Get Your Money Together, Your Perfect Finance Workbook, Lillian Karabaic. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time here, come in, get comfortable, and welcome. Inspired Money is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to put money and inspiration together so we can live a richer life, make a greater impact, and together make the world a better place. Thank you for being a part of this mission. So I can't believe it. As I mentioned last week, Inspired Money is a year old. I really appreciate you listening and being with me every week. I want to do something special for the birthday episode, and I'm planning it for next week. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy, that's A-N-D-Y, and I added a button to leave a voice message. Some voice messages have started coming in. I want to give you one more week to send your message. I'd love to hear from you and include your message in the one-year anniversary show. Today we're talking to Lillian Karabaic, who hosts the syndicated Oh My Dollar personal finance radio show and podcast. She co-founded the Stream PDX community podcasting studio in a converted 1960s Airstream. At Podcast Movement, she was a speaker, and her talk was entitled Breaking Through Creative Blocks Like Bowie. In this episode, you'll learn Lillian's amazing tactics to increase your savings, how she went to college and is debt-free, and even some tips from her book that mixes her love for personal finance and cats. I'm super excited to share this episode with you. So let's get inspired with Lillian Karabaic. Lillian, welcome to Inspired Money. It's so great to be sitting down with you.
yeah, this is awesome. I'm so glad we managed to make this work, even if I'm dressed a little ridiculously right now while we do it.
Yeah, I want to get into that. But first, let's jump right in. What is your earliest childhood memory of money?
Oh, yeah. I'm not even positive exactly that this is like money related, but I think it speaks very well to why I ended up doing the things I do and the way I do them. I had a census of all of my stuffed animals that I conducted on an annual basis, starting at like age 6. And there was like, I'd have a large convention of all of the stuffed animals, and they all would have jobs, and I would report what their salaries were, and their salaries would be like based on their whatever food I thought they ate. And remember, this is like pre-Google, so you couldn't just like Google like what do deer eat.
What does a teddy bear eat?
I think bears ate berries, but they would have salaries that would be like 10,000 berries a year, and then like the elephants would be like, X number of peanuts a year. And I would keep it, and like they would get raises. Sometimes they would get laid off. Like a family friend had gotten laid off, and so like there was a mass layoffs of the stuffed animals at that year's convention. And I hand wrote and recorded all of this in like a log that I kept for a bunch of years. So I feel like it's like no wonder I eventually went to school for economics.
That is amazing.
I was an only child. I had a lot of free time.
You gotta publish those books or do something with those.
Yeah,
do you still have them?
took pictures of them. My parents moved out to where I live now a couple years ago, and they made me come back and go through like all the random childhood crap that was still at their house. And I found this and I took pictures of it, but it was before I started professionally talking about money, and I like am kicking myself that I didn't keep the actual journal or like take higher quality scans of it, because I feel like it's gold for talks. Yeah. But I do have a picture of me from one of the years of the stuffed animal conventions. I made a sign and everything.
That is so cool. I love that. I love that. So I'm sitting here today looking at David Bowie.
An interpretation of David Bowie.
Yeah. What's the inspiration? You have many like iterations of David Bowie too. It's not just one costume.
It's
like if
true.
people say, Lillian, can you wear your David Bowie costume? You have to ask them which one.
Oh yeah, definitely I do. And usually I pick it based on like the climate and how far I have to travel, because some of them don't travel very well. So I have like 12 Bowie costumes, and I have them because I started this bike ride in Portland called Bowie versus Prince. And I started it, and I just thought it was going to be this one-off like dance party bike ride in 2007, I believe. And then I couldn't kill it. People liked it so much that every year I had to organize it. So, of course, being who I am, I can't possibly repeat costumes year to year. That would be a travesty. So I started sewing a new costume every year. And then when I started teaching personal finance, I kind of discovered that the Bowie costume really disarms people, and their expectations of what they're going to talk about with money are like totally broken when you walk in wearing spandex and platform boots. And it lets you have like a more honest conversation about money.
Huh. You think? Is that why David Bowie had costumes too?
Well, I think David Bowie had costumes because he recognized the value in like the persona, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think there's a lot of value in that, in having conversations with yourself about money. In the end, right? This is all like a performance, and we're only on Earth for so long, and money is just one of the tools to live your life in a really, if that's one of your core values, whimsical and ridiculous way. And I think costumes can kind of help remind you to not take this stuff that seriously.
I love that.
So,
I love that. So Bowie versus Prince.
Yeah.
So is it half-half? Like half the people are
it's
donning their Prince costumes?
Yeah, Bowie usually wins. It got so big, it got to like 1,500 people that we started to have to start the ride in 2 separate locations.
Wow.
So I acquired a co-leader, and who's a really great guy, and who actually like started biking because he came to the first Bowie versus Prince ride, and now like bike commutes like 30 miles a day, all because he like wanted to dress up like Bowie. But he leads Team Prince and I lead Team Bowie. The ride is actually done. I led it for 9 years, and it ate up my June every year. And when they both died in the same year, I was like, you know what? It's a sign. But we had some really ridiculous things over the year. We had a 3-way bracket of tug of war between Team Morrissey, Team Bowie, and Team Prince. Bowie won. Team Bowie won. I think it's the platform boots. They give you really excellent leverage for tug of war.
It's the unknown secret of tug of war.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
But you need a lot of people with platform boots. If you only have one person with platform boots, they're going to topple over. Yeah.
Power in numbers. So you told me that your professional path requires a subway map.
Yeah.
To explain.
It doesn't require, but it's definitely easier to navigate with a subway map.
Since we are on an audio podcast, can you take us through like a little bit? You don't have to go like every stop, but kind of what your path looks like?
Well, so there's a couple different lines. One of the lines on the subway map is sort of like a tech line. And I've always done weird stuff with tech. I learned HTML when I was in elementary school, and PHP when it was at the beginning of the web internet. And so I've always been interested in tech as a tool, but not as like, I don't enjoy building large pieces of software, but I enjoy integrating them with other things. And then one of the lines is zines. And I was a zine librarian for 7 years at the second largest zine library in the world, or first, depending on who you talk to. The other one's in France. We have feelings about it. But yeah, so I have done a lot of weird self-publishing over the years, including like a tax guide for Oregon strippers called Don't Lose Your Pants, and a by the way, if anybody listening to this is an exotic dancer, you should be an S Corp, just so you know.
Is a zine library, are those fanzines?
Yeah, from all over the world. We had stuff dating back to the 1930s, and really interesting collections of, anti-fascist pamphlets published in the 1940s and 50s. And
my college roommate published a punk rock fanzine.
Oh, nice.
And I was a cover boy a couple times, for whatever that's worth.
Oh my gosh, I hope that you have pictures of that and you put it in the show notes.
I have to look those up. I can probably dig those up somewhere.
Oh man, that's
I'm
delightful.
also on the cover of a 7-inch album that we recorded.
Is this your secret modeling past?
Apparently.
Yeah.
It must have been in a group of 4 musicians. No one else wanted their picture taken.
Okay.
And my roommate was the singer and he had the camera, so he couldn't take his own photo.
Okay.
This was pre-selfie days.
Yeah, pre-selfie. I feel like we're learning so much about you.
I know.
So zines is one of the lines. And then what are the other lines? Oh, economics is one of the lines. So I have done a bunch of things involving weird kind of economics. I was a tax preparer. And I also did a lot of kind of policy work in both economics, but also transportation. So I would say bikes is probably the biggest. It's like the circle line on the transit map that touches everything. But I worked in bike policy nonprofits for a really long time. I worked for a congressperson on their team working on transportation policy, particularly bike policy and vehicle miles traveled tax, which is really nerdy, but an excellent economic solution if anybody cares. But yeah, so I don't know. I've had kind of a whimsical career, and I added it up recently, and I had 40 jobs in my 20s because I always worked at small nonprofits, so I always had to have side jobs. So at any given time, I almost always had 3 to 5 jobs because at 40 jobs, and I think my average tenure was still 2.5 years.
Yeah, you were working hard.
Yeah, working hard, but
working a lot.
Working a lot, but maybe not hard. I don't know. I did a lot. I did 2 years in AmeriCorps, and I was also a Catholic worker, which is essentially I was a live-in social worker at a house for homeless young mothers. So I don't know. I just had a weird and varied career, but involving costumes whenever possible.
Among 40 jobs, was there a favorite, or if we went back and you were 20 years old and someone asked you, what is your dream job? What would that be?
Okay, what was I doing when I was 20? When I was 20, I was a live-in social worker at a house for homeless young mothers. I was a part-time organic farmer at a food banks farm. I was a dishwasher and at a really fancy department store. Excellent tips in that job. And what else was I doing? Oh, yeah. I was working on a fruit tree mapping project. I had just learned GIS. This was before Google Maps. So you couldn't just drop points into a map. You had to learn ArcGIS in order to map things. And I was trying to map all the fruit trees in my town that were accessible so that we wouldn't waste food. So I think at the time, I really thought I would have a food-related job at that moment in time. But I was still pretty into transportation. And very shortly after that, I think I was 20 when I applied for my second AmeriCorps term, which I did at the Bicycle Transportation Alliance. So I guess I've always wanted jobs that have as many interests as possible involved in them. So maybe I don't know if I had a dream job. I had 5 dream jobs, and I was just very annoyed that you have to sleep.
You mean you have to stop working?
Which I have not gotten over, just to be clear. I value sleep now, and I get it, but I'm still very angry we need it as humans.
So where are you today? I know that you published a personal finance book, which I want to talk about. You also you're involved in radio. Yeah,
so I'm a radio host a couple days a week reading the news. But the main thing I work on is my show, which is Oh My Dollar. And we're a personal finance show. We're really short. We're 15 to 20 minutes a week. And we're on broadcast radio as well as podcast. But all I try to do is be the friend, be the slightly weird friend who understands numbers and is willing to do the research on, retirement plans or investing or whatever you need someone that is friendly to explain to you. And that's pretty much what we do at Oh My Dollar. So we call it personal finance with a dash of glitter, but it's hard to convey the glitter all the time over the radio. So
how do you do that?
Well, we have a little glitter noise.
Okay.
But
glitter sound effect.
I think depending on how much caffeine I have, glitter just comes out sometimes in my voice. So
I understand that there was a moment because you were in the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
And then something happened where you felt the need to be like, okay, I know something about personal finance.
I was always kind of into this. I was saving in a Roth IRA even when I was 20, and I was making $100 a month as a social worker. And when I was in AmeriCorps, you make $800 a month, and I had saved $2,000 in my Roth by the end of my 11-month term, making $800 a month. So saving has always been really important to me, even though I've never made great money. I mean, I make very close to the poverty level for my state. I would like to fix that, but that's the reality. And I was working in a small nonprofit, mid-sized, I guess, about 30 employees. And most of the employees were in their 20s and 30s. And my boss came to me one day and said, "Hey, we're going to get rid of the 401k. I was like, "What? What are you talking about? I am so happy I have a 401k. It's like the first time I've had a job that's had one." And they were like, "Oh, you're the only one using it out of all of our employees." So I ended up begging them. I was like, "Please don't get rid of the 401k. I had the luck and advantage that because I'd been living so cheap for so long, when I was making $30K a year, I was maxing out my Roth IRA. So it was actually going to cost me a lot in taxes if the 401k went away. I actually started freaking out and looking for side jobs so that I could open a solo 401k. But I ended up teaching a workshop to all my fellow employees on personal finance. And then kind of word of mouth spread. And so I started doing more of it. I started teaching them about my alma mater and some other colleges. And that was kind of my side hustle for a while, was just being the person that walks you through
retirement plans.
Not just retirement, budgeting, all kind of the financial literacy basics that someone should have explained to us at some point. But for some reason, most of us don't get, or we get really untrue messages. I'm amazed at how much false information there is circulating out there.
What are the big fallacies that you hear repeatedly?
I mean, I hear some people believe that if you check your credit score and you have previously defaulted on your student loans, that the feds will come find you, which I guess is true in a very large and cosmic sense. But the act of checking your credit score does not send an alert up at, Sally Mae, oh, red flag. I know a lot of people who believe that they absolutely cannot save for retirement because they don't make enough money. And I truly believe that saving is something that you have to do at any income level, and it could just be 1%. But I hear a lot of people that are like, "Oh, I'll never be able to retire." And it's just not true, right? There's only two things you need to be able to retire: time and savings. Yes. So one of those is going to happen regardless. So you might as well take control of the one that you have the ability to take control of.
Let's dig into that a little bit, because there are people that have high incomes and still no savings.
I know.
And
I know a lot of them.
From what I hear of your experience, you are like a savings master, because even when you were making $100 a month or $800 a month, you knew how to live. And it sounds like you're still able to eat. You're still, still able to get to work. You're still able to function, and you know how to manage with what you have.
I mean, obviously, I am abundant in privilege that makes some of that stuff possible. And I didn't grow up in poverty, but I think that there was a lot of advantages to, I went to college late, so I didn't end up in some liberal college bubble from when I dropped out of high school when I was 16 until I went back to school when I was 24. So I really did get the experience of living with a lot less. And I think it helped me recognize how little I really needed to live. Now that all these trends of minimalism blogs where people are giving things away, it was really hard for me to read those things when I was younger, because I had literally moved across the country to live in a tree on a hippie commune when I was 18. So it was sort of oh, reduce your possessions so that you can fit them all in a studio apartment. And I was like, I couldn't move into a studio apartment right now. I would not have enough stuff to like fill it. And I remember I shared a room in a co-op that I lived in. So I was always very into collective living as a way to save money, but also community is one of my core values. And you know, it comes with its challenges, mainly dish related. And I had a roommate when I was in AmeriCorps, but it was the first time that I had a space of my own that was more than a single bed. Like I had like a whole bookcase and like a place to put clothes. And after a year of that, compared to living I used to live in a geodesic dome that was like an 8-foot radius, I was like, oh, the amount of stuff I've had has just kind of trickled into my life. And I ended up moving back into a 10-foot geodesic dome. So, you know, I had some lifestyle inflation.
What is that? I don't even know what that is.
Geodesic dome is like, if you look up Buckminster Fuller, it's a type of shape. Technically, I lived in an icosahedron, not a geodesic dome, but it was made of recycled political yard signs and bubble wrap and a lot of hope, kind of putting it together. And then the structure was made from old shipping boxes. But I lived in like a little kind of offshoot of a eco-village in Eugene where they made these geodesic domes. And it was kind of like a really nice tent, you know, like, but you could totally customize it. You could build things in. And so when I moved to Portland, I actually got the folks from Eugene to come up and help me. And we built me a 10-foot dome and I lived in the backyard of a punk house for quite a long time. But if you only live in 10 feet of space, it really makes you question acquiring possessions. So
and prioritizing.
Yeah.
What's important to you.
And, you know, even when I lived on a geodesic dome, I really, really wanted to go and work with a particular place in India, this group of women that had founded a seed saving collective. At the time, I was really into like seed saving and figuring out biodiversity and food. And, you know, the flight to India is not cheap, especially when you're making $800 a month. But I think it was very much due to assessing my values and my priorities and knowing that that was a goal that I wanted to work towards that made it possible for me to get to the point where
I was
able
to save enough.
Yeah, able to save enough and move to India for close to several months to go work at the Seed Saving Collective. So,
and what did you learn there? How was that experience?
It was definitely interesting. It was very eye-opening. I worked with a lot of women who had been victims of human trafficking and who had come from all over the world, but mostly all over India, and had been trafficked into the port city and were going through a rehabilitation program to learn how to operate a commercial laundry. And so many of the women did not share a language with anyone. You know, India has I think the most languages on the planet. I think there's 500 recognized languages in India, which is mind-boggling as an American that's like angry that, you know, some people speak Spanish, right?
Yes, I've seen that video, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or those videos.
Or that like daily life experience for some people.
Coming up, we talk college tuition, savings, and teaching personal finance with cats. But first, Lillian talks about appreciating the privilege of living here in the United States.
So there were so many women that just not only did they have no home and no family, they didn't even have like words or connection with other folks. And it made me really appreciate how much privilege I had to even move around the world and be like, look at me, I can live on $800 a month. Like, oh, that's so great. That's like more than the average person makes in a developing country. So I think it was valuable to bring that experience back to the States. I also learned I don't want to work for an international NGO, but that's a different story.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the nonprofit industrial complex episode.
The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/055. You'll find links to our guest, things mentioned in the episode, and we're adding transcripts, so check the website for updates. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Did you know back in 2007, Warren Buffett made a $1 million bet against protege partners that hedge funds would not outperform the S&P 500 index fund over a 10-year period? He did just that, and he won. Buffett's pick was the Vanguard 500 index fund Admiral shares, and it returned 7.1% compounded annually, while the basket of hedge funds returned an average of only 2.2%. As agreed upon, the prize money went to charity. Buffett picked Girls Inc., an organization that supports young girls in Omaha through after-school and summer programs. Warren Buffett is a big believer in passive index funds. With the Vanguard 500 Index Fund Admiral shares, or any S&P 500 Index Fund or exchange-traded fund, you own all 500 companies in the index, rather than trying to pick individual stocks. The S&P 500 is an American stock market index based on market capitalization of 500 large companies. It's one of the most commonly followed equity indices, and many consider it to be the best representation of the U.S. stock market and bellwether for the U.S. economy. Just a heads up, not all S&P 500 index funds are created equally. While most of them perform very similarly and have the same holdings, the fees can vary widely. Morningstar published an article this summer illustrating that the Ridex S&P 500H with a ticker symbol RYSPX, and Schwab S&P 500 Index Fund, ticker symbol SWPPX, are both S&P 500 trackers with correlations of returns and holdings that are extremely close, yet their net expense ratios are 1.58% and 0.03% respectively. That is a massive difference. Looking at many index ETFs, Morningstar found that the lowest fees are around 0.04%, that's 4 basis points, the middle to be 9 basis points, and expensive to be 40 basis points or more. Warren's Vanguard 500 Index Fund Admiral shares has an extremely low fee of just 4 basis points, but it has a high minimum investment of $10,000. If you're buying an S&P 500 index fund or own one, go check your fees. If your 401k plan has an S&P 500 fund that has a high fee, or if you don't have an S&P 500 choice at all, talk to your HR department or whoever's in charge of your retirement plan. You have a right to demand better. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. That's RUNNYMEDE. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. So what's your biggest financial challenge right now? Email me at awang@runnymede, RUNNYMEDE.com, or go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy to write me. I'd love to hear from you, and we can even do a short call, since it can be so much better to talk money. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. Okay, so you came back.
Oh, I came back. At that point, I had enrolled in college, so I was studying economics. I was incredibly lucky that I managed to get a lot of scholarships for college, including I chose to go when I was old enough where my parents' income didn't count, and that meant that I got full aid. So this is like the most annoying money tip I give.
Is that by age?
Well, yeah. Once you're 24, you're no longer counted under your parents' income, which I work with a lot of homeless youth that might have been kicked out of their house because they're gay, and quite often their parents won't fill out the FAFSA. And often you have no option. I mean, you can try to make options. You can apply for private aid that doesn't need the FAFSA. You can talk to the institution that you want to go to, but sometimes the best advice for those youth is to wait until they're 24, and then your parents' income doesn't count. And because of that, I hadn't been making great money, so I got a full Pell Grant. My institution gave me a lot of aid because they base all of their aid off they meet everything up to your estimated family income or contribution, which mine was $2,000 a year for a $50K a year school because I didn't have $50K a year. Obviously, I've never had $50K a year in my life. So it made a huge difference. And I think a lot of people, I put a lot of research into it because I was really committed to going to school without debt. And a lot of people assume that state school is going to be the cheapest option. And I had done some credits at community college, but community college almost everybody at my school qualified for the Pell Grant, and it was very competitive to get need-based aid because most people qualified for it. If you go to a rich school, the rich kids pay full freight, and then the school can provide aid. So the sticker price means nothing. That's like the biggest thing to take away is that they have a lot more flexibility if they have a big endowment at a private school. And if you see $50K a year, don't necessarily freak out because very few people pay that full amount.
Or $70K.
Is it really that much
Some of
now?
them.
Oh, heartbreaking. I'm so sorry that it has inflated so much.
I know. It's crazy.
It's out of control.
It sounds like you don't shy away from doing things differently from the masses.
I guess that's correct.
I mean, I'm looking at you right now, and
I'm wearing a one-legged, one-armed spandex suit right
Exactly.
now. So, yeah.
and you wrote a personal finance book.
That is a little different.
Yes.
It is a little different. So, my book is called Get Your Money Together, which is about as bland of a title as you can.
That sounds very vanilla.
Yeah, it's pretty vanilla, and it's, it does exactly what it says, but the kind of the twist is that cats will help you do it. So the whole book is personal finance, and it is cats explaining everything you need to know about your money. So it's intended for people under the age of 40. It's really great for like new college grads or people kind of just starting to figure things out. Or if you're one of those people that's like, I've been ignoring my student loans for a long time. Now I would like to have some structure. So it walks through budgeting. It walks through, money and values and really determining what you want from your money and recognizing that money is a tool and it's like not inherently bad or good to have money. And it also does, kind of the dry stuff. So we talk about credit, which I call the great American laser pointer chase. And the cats will also walk you through retirement portfolios. So everything is based on, for the more nerds listening to the show, it's all index fund it's meant to be very basic. Get your portfolio together, no choosing individual stocks, but the cats use their toys to explain it. So, they use all their toys as though they're different types of company and show you a diversified and undiversified portfolio. And then they have a traditional box, which is kind of closes up and is harder to get into. And then the basket is the Roth. So, yeah.
Yes, I love the illustrations. The illustrations are amazing.
They're so cute. Fiona Wu is the illustrator for it, and she is a phenomenal cat illustrator. My favorite part of the cats in the book are that they, most of them are people who backed the book on Kickstarter. So it was the supporters that made the book happen. If they had a cat, they could back at the your cat included level. And so a ton of the cats have like names and we know things about them. So there's even an index in the back that tells you like the cats in the book and what page to find them on and what their favorite activities are.
That's amazing. How did you conceptualize the idea to have the cats?
It just like came to me in a dream. I honestly don't remember. I've been asked this a few times. And I think that like,
do you own a cat?
I do own a cat. She's great. She has a website. It's indiewebcat.com if you want to check out my cat's website.
Show notes. Put that in the show notes.
Yeah. It's very important, obviously. She updates about how she naps in a box and ate cat food. That's like, it's a pretty boring blog. But she loved, by the way, the process of doing the book because she's not usually allowed in the home office because we have all of our photo studio stuff set up. But we needed to use her to film the video for the Kickstarter. And so we kept encouraging her to come into the office and then like roll around on money. And like we paid, undivided attention to her and let her into the office and then like let her roll around in piles of paper, which is like all of her favorite activities. So she's a huge fan of the book.
She's a celebrity now.
We were worried it was going to her head for a little while. We were like, your picture is everywhere, Dora.
Don't get used to rolling in the money, okay?
Yeah, this is not normal.
Will there be sequels? Like the dog, the dog book's coming?
That people keep asking that. I mean, I would love to put together a dog book. Let me sell all these cat ones first.
Yeah, what's the reception?
It's been amazing. Like the people that make me the most happy are the people that write in to say like, I found your book. I don't care about finance at all, but I'm kind of aware maybe I should. And I got this just because like I thought the cats were cute. And then it has totally transformed my relationship to money.
Then they learn something.
Yeah, then they learn something. I mean, and that's the whole goal, right? Like it's awesome to have people that already listen to personal finance shows and that are already doing the research and kind of on the path. Like it's nice to give them some support and some worksheets and some cats. But the people that I am so excited about reaching are the people that would never, ever walk into the finance section of the library or of Barnes and Noble to do. I don't know if anybody walks into a Barnes and Noble anymore anyway, because who gets books in person? But
People still do. People still do.
Okay, all right, I believe you. Most of the wholesale sales of the book have been like impulse places. So like gift shops and cat cafes have been like my best wholesale suppliers over like bookstores, because people, it's exciting to see something about a topic you feel like you should worry about in a place where you're doing something that's purely pleasurable, like a cat cafe where you're literally just going there to pet cats, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think I would grab your eye and then you leave with your book.
Yeah, and then hopefully eventually you learn how to rebalance your portfolio.
Yes, through cat toys.
The cats are a gateway drug to personal finance.
Exactly. Well, that's what you discovered.
Yeah, it's been working really well. So, and if you have any kittens that would like budgeting explained to them, I'm always looking for kittens to co-star in videos.
Do you include like college savings in the book?
We don't dive too deep into like 529s, just because it varies so much by state. I do kind of mention it briefly, and we definitely talk about savings a lot in the book. And on the show, I've talked about I don't even know how many times I've talked about 529s, because I know a lot of people that are just starting to have kids and are like, I would like to not have my kids be in as much student loan debt as I am.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's just, as you know, very frustratingly varies between states, and some of the 529s are crap. Right.
Yeah, they vary widely in their investment choices.
Not only just their investment choices, like some states 529s, there's a couple states where they are only prepaid tuition plans for the state university, which like I would never advise someone to do. One, because I know that college inflation is greater than the rate of regular inflation, but you have no idea, like, especially if your kid's really young, you don't know where they're going to go.
Exactly.
You don't know where they're going to get in. You don't know where they're going to go. You don't know if they're going to want to go to college. And the 529, at least, is usually, if it's not state-sponsored tuition, it's flexible unless you could reassign it to someone else. If you've got a kid that decided not to go to college, and then you have another, friend of yours that might benefit from it, you can reassign it. Or you could use it for, welding school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you have any practical tips to share? Because I know that you're here for Podcast Movement.
Yeah.
And even while in Philadelphia, not an inexpensive city, you are here and finding ways to stay inexpensively, eat relatively inexpensively.
Yeah. I think one of my big strategies, so I'm staying in a hostel, which is unglamorous, but I'm out like 12 hours a day at this conference. I don't really care what my hotel room looks like. I get very little value in a nice hotel room, and I think maybe an anti-value sometimes when I'm here to network, because I'm an introvert and I'll want to like go retreat to my room if it's nice, but I keep thinking about my like hostel bunk bed, and I'm like, nope, I'll stay out and network a little longer. But I love to stay places where I can have a kitchen, and that's because I'm obsessed with tacos for breakfast. And I have like a whole spreadsheet on my website. My tacos cost 22 cents a piece. I started doing them like 8 years ago because I had a 1-hour bike commute to school, and I just every other breakfast I tried was either too expensive, too sugary, or it would be simple carbs, and then it would just burn off by the time I got to school. So like I would bike to school and then by 8 a.m. I was starving again even though I had just eaten breakfast like an hour earlier. And black bean tacos were the only thing I found that was like super fast to make. It takes me about 8 minutes to make it. I've converted my partner to, so we're like
black beans or pinto beans?
I do black beans, and we make them. We now have an Instant Pot, which is like the height of lifestyle inflation in my life. It's so amazing though, because it makes black beans from totally dry to done in like 40 minutes, which I've improved over the years. I used to like dye my stove purple every week making black beans as it would like flow over. So I got really good at cleaning purple black bean juice all off my collective. So. And then the other big thing is figuring out transportation. So, if you're not staying in the conference hotel, it makes a ton of sense to stay a walkable distance from the hotel, because if you're spending all your money on lifts and transit, it turns out that often that can kind of negate the savings from staying somewhere cheaper. So I often stay with friends. But one of the reasons I didn't stay with friends, even though I do have friends in Philly, one, sometimes I feel like a rude guest if I'm out a lot at a conference, so I can stay more focused if I stay in a hostel. But the other reason that I don't stay with friends is because then I'm at the mercy of wherever they live, and rarely do they live next to conference hotels, right?
Right.
Because that's not like a place that normal people live usually, because they're always in like the city center and in like the tourist area. So, the friends that I have in Philly would have been like 40 minutes on the subway, which just eats away at like prep time for workshops or networking time. But, a nice 10-minute walk from the hostel is like a good way to start my morning.
I'm in an Airbnb. I also have a kitchen.
Oh, nice.
I didn't have tacos, but I had Thai food last night for dinner.
And you reheated it?
There were a lot of leftovers, and everybody else is staying in the hotel. So I said, I will take the leftovers since I have a kitchen. But today's the last day of the conference.
Did you eat it all?
Yes. I woke up this morning.
With a mission.
Yes. I'm like, if I'm going to eat this Thai leftovers, I have to do it right now. And I really only have like 15 minutes because I need to meet someone at 8 o'clock. So
that's impressive.
Downed noodles and spicy Thai curry and then walked in very humid Philadelphia weather. And I think I perspired like curry this morning.
That's excellent, though. That's so good. As someone who eats like raw habaneros for breakfast every day in my tacos, I appreciate that, like, when it's humid and sweaty, sometimes you can feel it coming out of your pores later.
Yeah, it was some sort of like Thai curry cleanse that I had this morning.
So sometimes when I'm at the gym, my eyes start stinging from the sweat of like the hot sauce coming out around my eyes, and I'm like, this is not good. Like this is probably a sign you're eating too many habaneros.
Yes, but at least you're working out, and that's what counts.
Sure.
So I'd like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
Oh, in general, I think that I will eventually define it when I stop having existential crises about whether or not I'm doing enough, but that might be when I'm dead. So, but like a healthy, productive, happy life for me is one where I'm not living based on what other people expect of me. And I usually, I'm really into goal setting and doing it in a very public way. And I've been documenting it and grading myself every year on my blog for years. And the question that I kind of always end up asking myself is, are you still having fun? Because there's so many things that I end up doing that are just a question of, I started doing this, I keep doing it, and then later I look back and I go like, oh, I kept doing that because I felt like I had to, but I wasn't having fun anymore. So I think success is, I'm still having fun and I'm helping people.
That's a simple and solid benchmark.
Yeah.
If you remove the external expectations, since you mentioned that as part of your answer, like what are your own expectations if you remove the external? Like what do you want?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll get back to you.
You're still trying to figure that out.
I've been trying to figure it out for a really long time.
Okay. Can you share an inspired money tip with the listener that's had a big impact on your life?
I think probably the biggest thing for me was realizing the relationship between savings rate and number of years in your working career, and that it's a double-edged sword in a good way, in that if you crank up the amount that you're able to save as a percentage of your income, you're shortening your working career even more because you're minimizing the amount that you have to live off of. And it's one of those things that makes perfect sense once you learn it, but is not an intuitive part of our conversation about money. And once you learn it, you start to go, oh man, that's really fun. And that's part of what motivated me to get my savings rate up to like 56% on a 40K salary. Cause I was like, man, if I can live cheap, I can shorten my working career to like 15 years.
Right. So that's part of it. You would be trying to shorten your working career.
Just so that I can do more Bowie costumes, but not have to charge people for it,
Right. You have the flexibility and freedom to do the things that are fun.
I want to keep working until I'm dead if possible, but I would like to be able to do it on my own terms.
Right. Increase the fun work. decrease the
Yeah.
work that
I don't
you
think
like.
I have any work that isn't fun, but that might be why I'm bad at making money.
Well, thank you, Lillian. Thanks
Thank
for
you so
sharing
much.
today. Thanks for sharing your unique experiences and your Bowie costume.
It has been awesome. I'm sorry that people can't see the costume over the radio, but imagine that my makeup is flawless and I didn't do it at 5 a.m. in a hostel bathroom.
Well, I will also post a photo in the show notes. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where they can find you, follow you, learn more about what you're doing, and find your book?
Oh, yeah. So they can find me if they look for Oh My Dollar, pretty much anywhere on the internet. We have a weekly podcast. It comes out on Wednesdays. And if they want to get their hands on the book for themselves or someone else who needs some personal finance in their life, you can grab some fiscal management at ohmydollar.com/book or just search for Get Your Money Together on Amazon.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lillian.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? I love Lillian's originality, from dressing up as David Bowie for her presentation to writing a personal finance book for cat lovers. She shared a lot of great tips today, but I have two favorite takeaways. One, you can save no matter how much you make. If Lillian can save when making $800 a month, you can also do it. Two, crank up your savings to shorten your working career. And I love the idea that she doesn't want to be beholden to her job, but if you have enough savings, you have the flexibility to do something that you really enjoy and love. Two simple but powerful lessons. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment and takeaway, let me know by going to inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. Let's continue the conversation there. All the music on today's show is by Jim Kimo West. Aloha, Kimo. Please tell a friend about Inspired Money and share your favorite episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe now. It helps more people to find the podcast and to grow our community. And don't forget, go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy to leave a voice message to be included in next week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you.